Was set up to encourage people to try a plant-based diet for the month of January. But could veganism be more damaging to the environment than we think? Here to shed light on the topic is nutrition scientist Dr. Graeme. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's not just vegans who are saying we need to eat less meat. The UK Committee on Climate Change suggested that we needed to reduce our consumption in order to reduce emissions. Is this not sound?
The reduction in emissions from what we actually eat to what we ought to be eating would be helpful, but the comparison between a purely plant-based diet and a purely animal-based diet's a bit misleading, really. However, we eat our diet primarily to get a supply of essential amino acids from protein. That's the first limiting nutrient worldwide for the 7 billion of us, and the world simply cannot provide enough protein from plant sources to meet human needs, because plant protein is of very poor quality compared to meat, or more particularly milk protein. So what we have to do is ensure that we consume the proper balance of plants and animal foods.
Those on the other side of the fence here would say that it's not poor quality, it's actually better quality. You get a more wholesome protein from things like lentils. If you put lentils and rice together, that's all you need.
Wholesomeness is not actually a characteristic that most nutritionists would recognise as being able to be measured. The fact is that there's 9 essential amino acids that you and I require in our diet every day, and they're present at very low levels in plant proteins and in up to 2.5 times as high level in milk. And so we can get what we need from milk by consuming about 40% as much protein as plant protein. Now, the key issue is not whether or not we get enough from plant protein, but what happens to those amino acids when we break them down. And when they go off to Bromley here in Christchurch and then are broken down in the wastewater management system, they go into the atmosphere. That's 2.5 times as much of a very, very damaging greenhouse gas, which we call NOx. It's 10 times as damaging as methane and 250 times as damaging as carbon dioxide. And it's the elephant in the room as far as human impact on climate is concerned.
When you're making these calculations, do you take into account the plant-based diet that is grown to feed the cattle and the animals?
I'm pleased you raised that. The majority of almost all foods that you and I consume directly from plant-derived sources have to be grown on arable land. That is to say, land that can stand being ploughed and fertilised and then ploughed and fertilised again. Whereas a great deal of the animal-derived food that we consume can be grown on land that's simply not suitable for arable production. So not only do we get a better quality and a better volume of protein that way, we can get it from places where we couldn't otherwise feed ourselves from.
So in other words, we need it, so climate be damned?
No, we need it and climate be saved. If you take a fully vegan diet on the one hand and a fully animal-derived diet with the minimum amount of protein from those animal sources consumed by 2 identical twins, the one on the plant-based diet will secrete more greenhouse gases than on the animal-based diet by enough to make up 2 round trips from Auckland to London annually. So veganism is not very good for the climate.
This is very interesting. We're definitely going to put this to another doctor on the other side. We have to mention that your business is in the dairy industry, is it not?
My business is in animal health and nutrition, and I invented something that improved performance and animal welfare, and my concern was that this was environmentally unsustainable. So I set out and did the calculations starting from first principles, food composition databases, and basic information about pasture and crop productivity. And that's where I uncovered this information. So I'm very relieved that my environmental conscience is clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Graeme